3 bone-chilling true summer vacation horrors that haunt you forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of crimson and ash, families packed their cars and headed for the beach, blissfully unaware of the dark secrets lurking in the shadows. It was the summer of 1995, and each child's laughter echoed against the crashing waves, a stark contrast to the eerie tales that would haunt their sleep. One by one, the horrors revealed themselves. The first? A notorious haunted lighthouse. Locals whispered of flickering lights that danced on the water, and ghostly silhouettes wandering the catwalk at night. Many who ventured close claimed to hear whispers beckoning them to the edge, and only a few returned with their sanity intact. But it wasn't just a lighthouse that stirred unease in the air. The second terror lay just a few miles up the coastline, an abandoned amusement park. Rides, which once echoed with joy, now stood still, rusting away under a cloak of creeping vines. Some said they felt cold hands brush their backs as they walked through shattered ticket booths, while others reported visions of children crying for help from the funhouse mirrors. It was enough to make your heart race and knees shake just thinking about it. And then there was the final tale, a legend that dripped from lips like honey but tasted like poison: the mysterious disappearance of a young girl, Mary. On a hot summer day, she ventured into the woods behind the beach and never returned. Though they searched for days, only her brightly colored swimsuit was found, wrapped around a twisted tree. Locals say her spirit still wanders those woods, singing lullabies that can pierce through the silence, luring unsuspecting souls into the brush hay. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Tension hung thick in the air as shadows deepened around the campfire. Folks exchanged nervous glances, their imaginations running wild. What if the lighthouse light wasn't just a trick? What if those who ventured too far into the amusement park didn't come back because they were trapped, or worse, they weren't alone? The forest beckoned ominously behind them, leaves rustling in a rhythm that could almost be mistaken for a whisper. Was it the wind, or was Mary out there, calling for someone to join her? They could almost feel her cold breath on their necks as the fire crackled sharply. What would happen to them if they crossed the boundaries of summer's warmth? The chilling truth was that some mysteries never die, and perhaps some shadows are meant to linger just a little too long. The embers of the campfire glowed dimly, casting fleeting shadows against the trees, each flicker hiding secrets that could turn the blood cold. As laughter faded to hushed whispers, the air itself felt heavy, a weight that clung to shirts and seeped into skin like an unsettling chill. Then, a piercing scream shattered the stillness. A group of teenagers, tentatively exploring the edge of the woods, raced into the clearing, faces pale as ghosts. "We saw her! We saw Mary!" They stumbled over each other as words, wide-eyed and gasping for breath. The fire crackled, ominously echoing their fear, and everyone leaned in closer, hearts racing. "What do you mean you saw her?" an older man asked, his voice steady but eyes betraying a flicker of concern. He was the unofficial leader of the group, the one who often told the stories of the haunted lighthouse and the mystery of the amusement park. The teenagers swayed, glancing back toward the trees, dread etched on their faces. "We were just walking," another teen panted. Dared each other to go deeper. And then we heard singing. It was this soft, sweet song. Like a lullaby. At first, we thought it was just the wind. The others exchanged uneasy looks, too captivated by the story to acknowledge their instincts. But then we saw her. A girl in a colorful swimsuit like the one they found. She was standing by the old oak tree, right where they say she disappeared. The teen's voice trembled as he spoke, invoking shivers among the gathered crowd. "I don't believe it," someone scoffed, but that doubt only lasted a second, crushed under the intensity of the eager gazes surrounding the fire. The sound of the waves crashing against the beach faded, turning into a distant, haunting melody to accompany the echoing whispers of the past. What if she is still searching? Someone murmured, curiosity mingling with fear. What if she needs someone to help her? A small group of spectators began to shift, the call of adventure pulling them toward the tree-line like moths to a flame. Before anyone could speak sense into them, a terrible sound rang through the air, a deep, rumbling growl that seemed to emerge from the depths of the darkened forest. It cut through the air, chilling everyone to the bone. Silence followed, thick and oppressive. Their breaths quickened, eyes darting nervously, searching the shadows. Let us go back. Now! A voice trembled, as fear pounded in hearts like a war drum. But curiosity was a more powerful adversary than dread. They hesitated, glancing at one another, exchanging glances that begged for validation. Some took a step toward the woods, drawn by the irresistible pull of the unknown. An older woman finally spoke, her voice breaking through the hesitance. We're not meant to tread there. Whatever happened to Mary, she was lost for a reason, she urged. But her warning landed on deaf ears. The allure of the ghostly lullaby was irresistible. Just then, a sudden flash of light burst from the depths of the trees, illuminating the outlines of shadowy figures. Gasps erupted around the campfire as they saw them, a line of spectral silhouettes, vague and distorted, hovering just beyond the tree-line. It was almost as if they were waiting. Everything fell silent, hearts thumping as they stood frozen. The air crackled with suspense, the fear thick enough to cut with a knife. Would they dare step forward, or would they retreat into the safety of the flickering fire? The decision loomed heavy upon them, an unspoken pact sealed in the depths of dread. Standing at the boundary of legend and the unknown, they all felt the same paralyzing pull toward the darkness. But in that moment, one thing was clear: some spirits wouldn't rest until their stories were told, or revived. As the shadows shifted and the figures moved ever closer, a single thought coursed through everyone's mind: what if Mary was not just seeking company but a reckoning? The glow of the campfire flickered weakly against the looming shadows. Their faces, once animated by laughter, now wore the masks of disbelief and terror. The spectral silhouettes lingered, undulating softly as if swaying to the rhythm of the eerie song that had bewitched them moments before. Is this a joke? Someone finally whispered, their voice barely above a breath. Anxiety tangled with anger and confusion, but the core of their fear was undeniable. Was Mary really out there, or was this just an illusion crafted by fear? One boy, desperate to break the silence, took a bold step toward the trees, his foot crunching the dry leaves beneath him. I'll prove it! I'll go see! A chorus of gasps followed him like a distant echo. Uneasy murmurs filled the air. Don't! You don't know what you're messing with! A girl shouted, her eyes wide, darting to the shadows. They're not just stories. But he pushed ahead, intoxicated by his own bravado. With each step, the ground seemed alive, whispering warnings with the rustle of branches and the creaking of ancient trees. The deep growl rumbled again, but it didn't turn him back. Instead, it only fueled his determination. Mary! Is that you? He called, his voice shaking, breaking into the oppressive silence. The others stood paralyzed, hearts pounding, electricity coursing through the air. They could barely breathe, the weight of the unseen pressing against their ribs. And then, a flicker of movement caught their eyes. It was subtle at first, a movement so slight it could have been mistaken for the wind. But the figures emerged clearer now, their shapes more defined. Ghostly and uncanny, their faces twisted in expressions of sorrow and longing. The boy froze, his bravado shrinking under the gaze of the apparitions. What do you want? He stammered, his voice trembling. He felt the world shift around him, reality bending as if time itself had twisted into a knot. Oh no, the older man murmured, his eyes wide with realization. They are the ones that never left. As if answering him, the scenes began to unfold around the boy, the glowing outline of Mary stepping forward, her dress spectral and flowing. Tears glimmered on her cheeks, glistening like dew in the early dawn. Help me, she whispered, the sound of her voice almost drowned by the haunting lullaby. The boy's heart raced. Step back, he thought. This isn't right. but his feet felt glued to the ground, both terrified and mesmerized. Behind him, the group exchanged raw looks of panic, uncertain about the right choice. "Don't listen to her," the older woman shouted, her voice slicing through the thick silence. "She's not what she seems. Don't let her lure you into the darkness." But it was too late. The boy took another step forward, captivated, his sense of the real world slipping away. Suddenly, the spectral figures lunged toward him. The firelight flickered violently as the ghastly forms enveloped him in a palpable chill. A scream ripped from his throat, but it was swallowed by the shadows. "Run!" someone shouted, the urgency pulling the rest of the group into motion. They darted away from the campfire, scrabbling toward the safety of the open fields, hearts pounding like war drums against their chests. Yet, as they fled, one question echoed ominously in their minds: what horrors lay in the heart of the forest? The silhouettes began to follow, their mournful wails mingling with the wind. And just as that thought struck, another deep growl rumbled, shaking the ground beneath them, raising skin like needles. Would they survive the night, or had they awakened something that couldn't be tamed? They stumbled through the dense underbrush, breathless and wild-eyed, panic wrapping around them like a tightening noose. The shadows clawed at them, shapes forming in the corners of their vision, skittering just beyond their reach. One girl halted, panting heavily as she turned back, her heart racing. "What if they take us too? We can't think like that." The boy beside her barked, urgency lighting his eyes. "Just keep moving." But doubts had seeped into their minds. What had they just unleashed into the night? The air was thick with whispers now, not just the dreadful wails of the past but the soft, pleading voice of Mary, threading through the rustle of leaves. "You have to help me." His gut churned with discomfort. Could he really be hearing her? They could smell the smoke from the campfire still flickering behind them, but it felt like a distant memory, a beacon fading into darkness. Their steps became frantic, branches snagging at their clothes and skin as they broke deeper into the forest, its secrets clawing at them, hissing from the shadows. Suddenly, another growl reverberated through the trees, deeper this time, vibrating in their bones. The group froze, eyes darting around, desperation rising as the sound reverberated ominously, echoing the fear building inside them. "Split up?" suggested another boy, his voice unsteady. "Maybe we can lose them." "No!" the older woman exclaimed, panic sharpening her tone. "We'll be picked off one by one. Stay together." A scream sliced through the air, echoing with raw, haunting terror. "What was that?" someone whispered, eyes wide. All heads turned toward the shrill sound that seemed to twist and blend with the haunting lullaby. "Over there!" a girl shouted, pointing into the darkness where shadows danced and twisted in mocking laughter. "We have to go now." They sprinted, fear driving their feet until the sound of the scream faded, giving way to the rustling leaves. But then, tumbling over roots and rocks, one of them tripped and fell, her scream choking in her throat before it was silenced. "Help me!" a weak voice cried, echoing eerily from the ground. The group spun back, horrified to see the girl struggling to rise, her eyes reflecting both terror and despair. "Come on, just get up!" shouted the boy, adrenaline surging through his veins. But as the others knelt down to help her, the lanky shadows emerged again, figures shifting with liquid grace. Their hollow eyes bore into the substitute helplessness of the girl on the ground, and their mouths stretched into unsettling smiles, as if relishing in her fear. "No!" the older woman screamed, rushing forward, but it felt as though time slowed. She lunged, but a figure reached out, brushing a spectral hand against her arm, and she screamed too, falling silent as her body went rigid. "What did you do?" the boy yelled, watching helplessly as their friend was pulled back, lost into the darkness, her eyes wide with despair as the shadows enveloped her. With more screams still brewing in their chests, panic shot electricity through the group. They ran blindly, tearing through the trees, ridged bark clawing at their cheeks. Then they hit a clearing, the moonlight spilling open like a wound, but with it came a hollow sound. Something unnatural pulsed in the distance, a beat that felt too sinister to fathom. "Where do we go?" someone gasped. "We can't let them take us too." But in that moment, the forest shifted. It felt alive, almost as if it were watching them, waiting for their next move. In the hush that followed, they all sensed it, a presence lurking at the edge of their minds, a dread that promised retribution for awakening its slumbering inhabitants. The air crackled, tense and alive, whispering secrets they weren't ready to learn. "Is it over?" one dared to ask, half hopeful and half terrified. But as a dark figure emerged from the shadows, standing on the edge of the clearing, grinning slowly, they knew this was only the beginning. Their hearts raced, cold sweat trickling down their backs, as a chilling realization settled heavily in their stomachs. The shadows had chosen their prey. And who among them would break first? The figure loomed, a silhouette etched against the pale moonlight. It stood unnaturally still, absorbing every frantic thought, every pang of fear that the group felt. The shadows twisted around its form, swirling like a living cloak. And then it spoke, a voice that slid into their ears like ice water. "Did you think you could awaken me and simply run away?" At that, the air thickened. A collective shiver ran through the group, their breath hitching at the sound, a chilling curiosity that crept in and coiled around them like serpents. "What are you? Who are you?" the boy stammered, desperately clawing for answers. The response was delightfully sinister. "I am the keeper of their secrets, the guardian of this night. And now, my children, you are part of my story." Panic exploded among them. They scrambled to retreat but found the shadows closing in their ethereal limbs, snaking through the trees to block any escape. "We need to fight," the older woman shouted, but her voice was swallowed by the whispering winds that carried promises of torment. Dark laughter erupted, echoing through the clearing. "Fight? You think you can challenge what sleeps within the roots of this forest?" In the throes of desperation, the group huddled together, hearts pounding as they exchanged terrified glances. Never had the light of the moon felt so far away. "We haven't done anything wrong," a girl cried, desperation edging her tone. "We just wanted to be free. We were looking for fun." "Fun? Oh, you'll find plenty of that here," the figure replied, its grin widening as it moved closer, each step echoing dread into their bones. "But only if you have the courage to face what lies beneath." Then, as if summoned by a wicked command, the shadows morphed. They twisted into faces that mirrored those of their lost friends, faces contorted in fear, writhing in unseen agony, desperate to escape their torment. "No." The boy trembled, eyes widening in revelation. "They're trapped." "Smart boy." "Very perceptive," the figure cackled softly, eyes gleaming with delight at the chaos unfolding. "But now they're yours to save or forsake. Choose wisely." Panic pooled in their throats, constricting around their vocal cords. What choice did they truly have? Save themselves or risk their lives for those already ensnared? The weight of moral conflict was almost unbearable, slipping into the cracks of their resolve. Suddenly, a flicker of defiance sparked in the group's hearts. They could feel the bond that tied them together, stronger than their fear. "We have to try," someone said, meeting the kindled gaze of the boy. "We can't leave them." The forest echoed their determination, a chorus of rustling leaves sounding a grim approval. But as they took tentative steps toward the shadows, ready to confront the nightmares lurking, the figure's laughter boomed across the clearing, encapsulating them in a web of dread. "Foolish children! Do you believe in heroes? In saviors? The truth is much darker." The shadows surged forward in response, and with it, a wave of breathless despair descended. They had awakened something terrible, and now it opened its jaws, ready to swallow them whole. "Don't let it take you!" the older woman cried, rallying them back, but as she shouted, the whispers grew louder, each promising torment, each feeding their fears. They stumbled backward, shadows lunging closer, and the clearing spun into chaotic motion. "Hold on to each other!" the boy yelled, grabbing hands, desperately trying to tether them against the darkness bearing down. Fear hung in the air, thick enough to taste, yet a flicker of hope flickered faintly, a belief that maybe, just maybe, they could escape. But then the shadows twisted again, revealing the true horrors of their choices. The echoes of the past filled the air, whispering names, Mary's name, singing its haunting tune, edging them closer to the brink of the unknown. And in that moment, Among the screams and the shattering realization of what they faced, another question loomed when the final choice came: who would they choose to save? The shadows thickened, closing the gap. Each second stretched like a noose. As the darkness enveloped them, the last vestiges of light flickered. Would the impulse to protect transform them into something else entirely? Panic surged through them, a raw electric jolt that held a promise of imminent horror. The boy locked eyes with his friends, their faces pale, drenched in moonlit terror. The shadows swirled, alive with insidious intent, echoing the anguish of those trapped within. Whispers morphed into screams, haunting choruses that twisted their resolve. "Fight back!" The older woman yelled once more, her voice heavy with urgency. "We can't let it win!" Steeling themselves, the group, driven by a primal instinct to survive, stepped further into the abyss, tethering their fears to determination. With each step, the whispers ricocheted off the trees, accusatory and echoing. They clawed at the edges of their minds, mixing doubt with dread. Suddenly, the shadows lunged, darting forward as if emboldened by their fear. Images flickered, flashes of past memories, their carefree laughter, long-forgotten secrets, and most hauntingly, glimpses of friends they thought lost forever. The forest trembled as the figure's grin widened, nothing more than a mouthful of darkness. "You think you can rescue your friends?" it taunted, slithering closer. "What makes you worthy? Look around, this is your fate, entangled in your own regrets." The boy's heart raced. "No! They deserve to be saved. We want to leave them behind. But to save them, you must confront your own darkness first," the figure whispered, each word wrapping like chains around their spirits. Fear morphed into despair, dragging at their will to fight. The shadows lunged again, their tendrils grasping at arms and legs, tightening like a vice. "Push back!" someone screamed. It was a flurry of motion, hands gripping tighter, an anchor against the rising tide of darkness. The boy focused on the sounds of the whispers, isolating them until one voice emerged from the chaos. "Mary! Help me please!" Mary's voice broke through, a specter held captive in the heart of the nightmare. "Mary!" the boy cried, his heart shattering with every ounce of hope. "We're here! We'll get you out!" At his words, the shadows momentarily stilled, as if anticipating the rush of emotions clashing in the hearts of those remaining. The echoes of the forest became a cacophony, drowning in sorrow and urgency. The figure sneered, sensing the shift in power. "Foolish sentiment. Understand this: each moment you delay brings you closer to joining the darkness yourself. Will you let joy lead to despair?" Determination surged anew. The group, feeling the sacred bond of shared memories and love, held tightly to one another, hearts beating as one. "We want to give in," they declared. "We'll find the light." With renewed resolve, they took a collective breath and began to move deeper into the shadows, pushing against the suffocating darkness. The shadows writhed rebelliously, every inch fought fiercely as if alive with rage. Sweat dripped down their backs, fear was palpable, yet they pressed on, driven by a blend of purpose and desperation. "Follow me!" the boy shouted, ripping through the web of darkness, but the figure lashed out, mimicking the echoes of lost friends, fragmenting their souls with agony. Each scream was a dagger in his heart, pulling at him to give up. But he couldn't. Not now. Not ever. As the void threatened to consume them whole, a flicker of light glinted off a trembling leaf. It was weak, but it was undeniable. "Together," he whispered fiercely, eyes flickering with an unyielding spark. The group solidified their grip, each one fueling the others with unwavering courage. They would fight for Mary. For each other. And in that moment the shadows recoiled, as if sensing their newfound strength. But just as they thought they found their way, a deafening crack echoed through the night, the ground beneath them splintering like fragile glass. "What was that?" someone shouted, stumbling as the world twisted. A fierce wind swept through the clearing, ripping leaves from branches, howling like a banshee. The light flickered again, this time within the trembling shadows. The boy's blood ran cold. In the chaos, the figure laughed. It was a sound wrapped in triumph. "Welcome to your reckoning." The horror materialized like an unholy creation, and as fear flooded the air, Deep inside, they desperately fought an encroaching truth. Each soul in the group trembled, torn between hope and despair, as they stood on the precipice of the unthinkable. Could they truly save those they loved, or would they be consumed by the same darkness that had claimed so many before? The darkness curled and twisted, waiting as decisions loomed dangerously close. But who would emerge as the true savior in the end? The earth rolled beneath them, a violent tremor that threatened to swallow them whole. The boy stumbled, his heart racing. His friends were shouting, their voices frantic in the chaos. "We have to move! Now!" one yelled, desperation lacing every word. The figure loomed larger, its shadow spilling over the ground like ink threatening to drown them. "Do you still cling to hope?" it sneered. "You're as foolish as your dreams." Against this tide of despair, the boy fought back. "We can't let it take us. We want to be your next trophies." His voice cracked from the strain, but determination infused every syllable. As they stumbled forward, the boy felt the weight of his friends' hands. They were trembling, but they were there, anchoring him back from the edge of the abyss. They were all in this together, fragile yet resolute. The flickering light danced ahead, a fragile beacon guiding them through the encroaching shadows. Each step became a battle, the darkness clinging like a shroud. Every whisper courted their fears, every scream redirected their memories. They fought for Mary but also against themselves. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered through the air, rising above the cacophony of chaos. It was a voice they recognized. "Stop! Please!" Mary's cry echoed, hanging heavy like a palpable force. Her figure emerged briefly from the dark haze, hauntingly beautiful and incredibly lost. "Mary!" The boy lunged forward, but the shadows reared, cutting him off. "Don't!" The urgency in her voice wrenched at his heart. "Stay back!" she shouted, her voice mixed with terror and something else, something deeper. "You don't understand what's at stake." "Then tell us!" he shouted, fear coiling tightly. "We'll face it together." The figure laughed again, a sound that felt like razor blades against their skin. "She knows, doesn't she? The truth you all dread to face? She's the key." With that, it unleashed a surge of shadows that enveloped them like a storm. The boy staggered, his breath catching. He could feel the cold grasp of the dark fingers wrapping around his throat, squeezing as dread seeped into his heart. Mary knew something crucial, something that could change everything. But what did she mean? In this moment of chaos, he realized their strength wasn't solely found in fighting against the darkness but in confronting it together. "Look at me!" The boy called desperately to Mary, desperate for connection, for understanding. "We can help you. You don't have to face this alone." For the briefest second, their gazes locked, and he saw the flicker of hope in her eyes, a testament that she was still there, fighting somewhere beneath that dreadful presence. But shadows rippled around her, tugging her away like an echo of lost dreams. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted violently again, and he fell to his knees, a sense of terror clawing at his insides as he lost sight of Mary. His friends, too, cried out, some losing their grip as figure looming grew ever more powerful in its laughter. "Give in to the shadows," it beckoned, voice unfurling like smoke tugging into the night. "Embrace the darkness. You'll find more fulfillment than they ever brought you." "No!" the boy yelled, defiance igniting deep within. "We will never embrace despair. It's not our choice." Yet the figure only grinned wider, dipping deeper into the shadows that surrounded them, pulsing with power, weaving a future filled with dread. The whispers reached a fever-pitch, images of regret and failure blurred in a frenzy that threatened to drown his resolve. His breath quickened. Where was the escape? The ground continued to shake, history, regrets and pain rising up around them. As darkness closed in this chilling moment, the voice that had called to them, the truth that lingered, the boy knew they were all at a crossroad. What was Mary hiding? What choice would define their fate? Questions surged within, demanding answers. Would they all emerge as saviors, or would the darkness ensnare each of them in its deadly embrace? The boy squared his shoulders, refusing to yield. This was far from over, it was just the beginning of an even deeper descent, and as the shadows surged forward, the reflection of agony flickered in the dark. The moment to confront the truth was upon them, but were they ready to face what lay beneath? The shadows thickened, swirling like smoke, and a chorus of whispers crept into the boy's ears, each one more sinister than the last, curling around him like fingers eager to pull him down into the void. Panic clawed at his throat as he grasped for his friends, their faces blending together in the chaotic mass of fear. "Run!" he shouted, though he couldn't see if they had heard him. All he could feel was the palpable weight of dread pressing down as darkness swirled around them, intertwining with their every desperate thought. Then, the ground split open beneath him, a gaping chasm that threatened to swallow them whole. The boy instinctively reached out, fingers outstretched, hoping for anything to grasp onto. It had to be there, some thread of light. Some promise of salvation. "Mary!" he yelled again. The only answer was the ghostly laughter of the looming figure, echoing off the trembling walls of the abyss. The boy felt his heart pounding against his chest, a frantic rhythm that matched the rising chaos. "Stay together!" he screamed to his friends, but uncertainty loomed over them like a dark cloud. He could see their faces, pale and frightened, glancing around as if searching for an escape that was slipping away with each passing heartbeat. "Don't look back!" one of his friends shouted, but the boy's gaze was locked on Mary, her silhouette slowly disappearing into the dark. He could feel the shadows reaching back toward her, pulling her further away. "Mary!" The desperation in his voice pierced through the noise, and suddenly, a flicker of light erupted in the shadows, a luminous burst that caught even the figure off guard. The boy froze, eyes wide. "Mary!" She stood there, illuminated, her features sharp against the backdrop of darkness. "I need you to believe in me!" she cried, her eyes glistening with an intensity he had never seen before. "I know the way out. You have to trust me." He could feel the pull of the shadows hazing his thoughts, but there was something about her words that reached into the depths of his being, driving the icy fingers of fear away for a moment. "We trust you!" he shouted back, determination flooding through him. The darkness surged again, but Mary raised her arms as if warding it off, a barrier of light radiating from her core. The shadows hissed like steam escaping a kettle. "Together! You have to come to me!" With his heart pounding and breath ragged, he turned back to his friends, who were caught between doubt and hope, fear battling against the instinct to flee or follow. "We can do this! We can step into the light!" One friend nodded, then another, and together they surged forward. The shadows snapped and clawed at them, but with every step they took, the light grew stronger. The bright illumination fought back the darkness, surrounding them like a cocoon. Just as they neared her, the figure roared, the sound reverberating like thunder, sending tremors through the ground and rattling their bones. "You will regret this choice," it bellowed, a warning laced with venom. The boy's heart raced as the shadows lashed out, but there was no stopping them now. They charged into the beacon Mary had become, desperate to break the hold of despair that threatened to drown them all. And in that moment, the moment they crossed the threshold, their surroundings exploded into blinding light. But then, just as suddenly, everything went dark again. They stumbled, disoriented, surrounded by an eerie silence. The shadows were gone, the cacophony of chaos replaced with the soft whispers of an unknown place. The air was heavy, and an uneasy stillness hung around them. "Where are we?" his friend breathed. The boy squinted, eyes adjusting. The landscape unfolded in a surreal tableau, a haunting mix of familiar and foreign. It was a world suspended between nightmares, filled with memories that clung to them like cobwebs, towering in the air like specters. "Mary?" he called out, dread creeping back into his chest. But the silence answered instead. There was no sign of her, just the inexplicable sensation that they were now trapped in a place where shadows danced on the periphery, eager to reclaim their lost prize. The boy's panic flared. Where had they come from? What was this place? The questions clawed at his mind relentlessly, and he felt the coldest shiver run down his spine. What choice had they made in stepping toward the light? As they took hesitant steps forward, unease settled in. The horizon shimmered, alive with secrets waiting to be unearthed, yet a harsh truth loomed ever closer. Did they leave the shadows behind, or had they simply stepped into a trap that was more sinister? And in the distance, he swore he could hear her voice soft and trembling calling out to them, guiding them back into the depths. But was it a call for help or a siren song to lead them into darkness once more? Questions echoed, and the boy could only hope that whatever came next, they would truly be ready to confront the darkness lurking just beyond their reach. The boy felt as if he were caught in a web of eerie memories, each step echoing in the heavy air. The horizon shimmered in a deceptive light, casting distorted shapes that flickered like distant dreams. His friends stood close, faces taut with fear, their breaths shallow and quickened. Silence clung to them, thick and oppressive. "Is this real?" one friend whispered, glancing around nervously. Maybe we should go back." "No!" The boy shook his head fiercely. "We can't go back. We need to find Mary." He took a step forward, and the ground beneath him felt alive, quaking as if it had its own heartbeat. Shadows scuttled along the edges of his vision, writhing like restless spirits. The atmosphere crackled with an unsettling energy, making the hair stand up on the back of his neck. "Mary!" he called again, louder this time, hoping his voice would reach her. But the fading light seemed to swallow every sound, leaving a hollow cavity in its wake. It felt as though they were only echoes in a world that had forgotten them. They moved cautiously, inching further away from the fog that had surrounded Mary. "What if she's in danger?" another friend murmured, her voice trembling. "What if this place is all a trap?" They all thought it. The shadows on the horizon shifted, pooling closer, stirring with malicious intent. The boy could swear they were whispering, though he could never quite make out the words. The nagging fear grew into a gnawing terror. "Let us keep going," he urged, putting on a brave front. "If we don't, we're just letting her down." With every step, he felt the shadows thicken, like fingers brushing against his skin. They crept alongside him, and his mind raced with frantic thoughts of what awaited them. Where was Mary? Was she close? Did she need their help? The boy pushed down the panic that clawed at his insides and forged ahead. The terrain shifted beneath them, an otherworldly landscape where trees twisted skyward like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and odd flickering lights danced between the trees, teasing them with a blend of curiosity and dread. Suddenly, a cry shattered the silence. "There!" One friend pointed toward one of the flickering lights, practically bouncing on his heels. "It looks like she's over there." But as they took off towards it, doubt crept back in. Each step closer seemed to draw shadows out of the darkness. They were hungry, alive, reaching out for the warmth of their fears. "Wait!" the boy shouted just as they reached the edge of the light. What they found wasn't Mary but a distorted version of her, a mirage flickering in and out of view, laughing wildly. "Come play with us," it taunted. His heart thundered in his chest. "It's not her!" he cried out. The laughter twisted in his ears, a cacophony of torment that drowned out his instincts. Time seemed to stretch, and in that moment, the figures began to dissolve, shifting back into darkness. The boy felt the realization crash down on him like a cold wave. "We have to go!" he yelled, spinning back toward his friends. But before they could turn, the shades surged forward, surrounding them with their sinister grasp. As the darkness closed in, the boy thought he heard Mary's voice again, clearer now, but tinged with urgency and fear. "Don't let them take you! Run!" The boy's instincts kicked in, and he propelled himself away from the shadows, pulling his friends along. They dashed through the forest, heartbeats sinking as they raced against the relentless tide of darkness. Just as they turned one last corner, the world around them began to shift again. Would the shadows consume them? Or would they find Mary and escape? The trees around them twisted and bent, morphing into nightmarish shapes, as the boy's breath quickened. He had no choice but to push forward into the enveloping mystery of the unknown, and as he glanced back one last time, he saw the shadowy figure grinning, the eyes glinting with a predatory hunger that promised a reckoning of their deepest fears. The forest throbbed with tension, shadows bending and twisting in a twisted dance. The boy led his friends deeper into the darkness, each heartbeat mingling with the whispers haunting the air. "Mary!" he called again, his voice echoing like a lifeline. "We need you!" Then, slipping through the trees, he thought he saw her silhouette, vibrant against the oppressive dark. "This way!" he shouted, charging ahead, but the shadows recoiled with a hiss. They clawed at him, freezing his steps, every whisper a taunt of despair. "Stay together," he urged, glancing back to see his friends gathering what courage they had left. But the shadows twisted with malicious glee, zeroing in on their fears, every dark thought unfurling like smoke. "Stay! Stay with us!" they called, voices dripping honey malice. Each step felt like wading through molasses. The boy turned back to the flickering light, but it was gone. In its place, he saw something darker, images swirling like a cyclone. Friends lost, faces contorted in fear, the weight of choices crystallized in their expressions. "Don't let them win!" he bellowed, igniting a determination in him that surged into the very air they breathed out. A growl rippled through, reverberating up from the ground, sending menacing tremors upward. The shadows began to close in, darkness surging like a tidal wave of dread. "Fight!" one of his friends cried, fists clenched. "We can't lose to them!" With a fierce cry, the boy reached out, gathering their hands, uniting their fears into something powerful, a bond stronger than the darkness surrounding them. "We face this together!" he shouted. "We can save her!" And with that, they surged forward as one, feet pounding against the earth. "Help me!" In that moment, a solitary sound, "Mary!" His heart raced as the voice pierced through the cacophony. "Mary, we're coming!" The shadows flinched, sensing the shift. With resolute strength, they broke through into a clearing, breathless and filled with that unyielding pulse of hope. And there, bathed in silvery moonlight, stood Mary. "Please!" she cried, hands pleading, her eyes glistening. "Help me break free!" "No longer just mere shadows," the darkness roared. "You cannot fight what resides in your soul. You will become one with it." The figure lunged forward, body expanding, monstrous and grotesque. "The forest craves its sacrifice. Keep moving!" the boy yelled, eyes darting from Mary to the figure, feeling the suffocation of the atmosphere pressing down. "Take her hand!" Hesitantly, they stepped forward, reaching for Mary, trembling hands stretching. She looked so real, yet deep within him, uncertainty stirred. Was this a trick? "Trust me," she whispered, her voice soft like a lullaby, returning the memories they had fought against. "You have what it takes to set me free." In that instant, something changed. The boy felt warmth ripple through him, and unwavering belief ignited. He surged forward, pulling his friends closer. Together, they reached out, clasping hands with Mary just as the shadow lunged for them again, maw wide, hungry. The moment their fingers found hers, light exploded around them, a blinding, radiant wave that shattered the darkness. The forest screamed, collapsing under the weight of their unity, the figure's shrieks rising into a panicked wail. "You can't escape!" But it was too late. The shadows retreated like a tide, dragged back into the earth, as if the very roots of the forest coughed out their fears. Mary shimmered, the light pouring from her as she began to dissolve into the brilliance. "Remember me," she breathed, her form brighter than ever, a smile gracing her lips. "You freed me." With that, she flickered like a candle flame, a wave of serenity washing over all of them as the fears that had imprisoned her rippled away, cleared from their minds. The shadows shrieked, caught in the struggle, until finally, they vanished, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. The boy collapsed, breathless. The remaining friends gathered, breaths mingling together in disbelief. "Did we really do it?" someone whispered, wide-eyed and teary. They felt lightness in their hearts, a bond stronger than any darkness. As they made their way back, the first light of dawn broke through the horizon, golden rays spilling across the landscape, whispering promises of healing. Though Mary had turned into a memory, her spirit lived on in them. Each step brought them back to the campfire where it all began, the landscape now visibly transformed, no shadows, no whispers, just the sound of waves lapping at the shore. The boy looked back at his friends, smiles flickering over faces that had once been painted in fear. They hugged tightly, sharing that shimmering moment of unity. We faced the darkness, and one. We'll never forget her, he vowed softly under the soft light of the morning, and as they walked away, only one thought echoed in their minds: some stories, once freed from the bounds of darkness, become legends, a bright glimmering light that guides those who remain. Thank you, dear friends, for journeying with us through this haunting tale. If you want to keep experiencing chilling stories that will light up your dark fears and fill your heart with wonder, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel. Don't miss another story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm so we can keep bringing you epic narratives. And flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and let us know what you think of Mary's tale. This is the moment to show your support. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this conclusion. Let us keep the stories alive and the community thriving. Don't wait even one more second to share.